I'd like to invite Vicki Layton to come forward. She has something to share from Joellen Keeseman.
Good morning. This morning, I am pleased to share some memories from our longtime member, Joellen McKee Keeseman. Now, Joellen and I had a couple of nice conversations last week, and as we reminisced about growing up in church, one thing that we fondly remembered was our moms, grandmothers, and other ladies in the congregation, like Elise Hanashowski, wearing hats to church on Sunday. So in loving memory of those precious ladies, I'm wearing a hat this morning. Joellen's family has a long history with First Christian Church. Joellen's parents were Frank and Gloria McKee, who were married in the sanctuary of the old church by Reverend Norman in 1945. Her mom's parents, Helen and Ralph Eaton, were members of First Christian Church in Hagerstown, and her dad's parents, Lula and Alan McKee, were originally members of the Beaver Creek congregation. Some other family members of Joellen's, whose names will be familiar to many of you, include her uncle and aunt, Luther and Ardella Swigert, and her great-aunt, Catherine Murdoch. Joellen and her brother Bob were baptized at the old church on South Potomac Street. Her brother John was baptized right here in the new church. In fact, he was in my pastor's class. Joellen's parents were active members of our congregation. Her mother was in the choir and taught Sunday school, and her dad was a scout leader, and both served on various committees over the years. All 4 of her children have been baptized in this sanctuary, as well as several of her grandchildren. Here are some memories that Joellen shared. My memories of the old church and the building of the new church are from different ages and seasons of the years. Promotion Sunday was in early September, and they'd take our Sunday school classes to the big Sunday school room. It was U-shaped with classrooms on 3 sides, both floor level and balcony level. The front had a stage and orchestra that played every Sunday. If it was our year to be promoted, they'd line us up on the stage. As our names were called, we'd get a certificate. The next Sunday, off we'd go to our new classroom. To me, it was always a little scary on the stage in front of all of those adults in the orchestra. I think of both Easter and Christmas. All of the children's classes got a little box of candy. It had pictures of stained glass windows on it, and it had a little string handle. When I was in Cairo, we met in the basement banquet room of the old church. Our advisors were Mrs. Ruth South and Mr. Claude Shank. One Sunday evening, Mrs. South told us that for our snack that night, we were going to make pizza. Not one of us knew what pizzas were or had ever heard the word. Today, that seems impossible to think when every half mile there's a pizza shop. We loved them and also did a good job of cleaning up the little kitchen. But when our parents arrived to pick us up, they all said, "What's that smell? It's awful." They didn't know what pizza was either. How things have changed since the 1950s. Every Sunday, my dad, my brothers, and I sat on the balcony at the old church, the same as we've always done here. My mom was on the choir, so Dad was in charge of us. At the old church, the sanctuary was on the 2nd floor. The choir room was behind the sanctuary, the way I remember, but so was the stairway to the balcony. Every Sunday, we'd follow Dad through all the choir members over to the corner where the enclosed winding stairway was to get up to the balcony. Dad always said, "We were closer to God up there." "Faith is the Victory" became our theme song during the fundraising years before the building of the new church could begin. As we started building the new church, every Sunday afternoon, half of everyone in the church drove to the new church in the North End to see what had happened during the week. So each Sunday, We saw everyone twice, at the old church in the morning and the new church in the afternoon. As the walls went up, then the roof, we'd try to figure out what every space was going to be as we walked through it. It still surprises me when I see a crack in the plaster somewhere in this church or something that needs a little repair. My first thought is always, how can that happen in a new church? And then I remember the new church is now 64 years old. Joellen loves history, and she enjoyed putting together a church history that goes from 1833 to 1971. To research, she used books that belonged to her dad, as well as a book from Erston and Nancy Newcomer, and a history written by Maurice Johnson. You'll be happy to know that copies of that history are available to be picked up in Fellowship Hall today. Just to give you a taste of some items from this research, the old church on South Potomac Street was wired for electricity in 1912 for a grand cost of $24.25. Also, did you know there was once a cemetery behind the old church? Please pick up copies of this information. I think you'll learn a lot. Many thanks to Joellen for sharing her memories and for putting this together, and also to Diana for typing it up and making copies for everyone. Thank you.